All right, well, welcome everybody to this very happy occasion. Welcome to the Graduate School of Journalism and to the commencement for our documentary class in 2014. I'm Steve Call, I'm the Dean of the school, and I'm really pleased to be here because I really believe in the importance of the documentary program at the school and have enjoyed getting to know some of the students who are participating in it now and were in it last year. This is the fifth class of students to be trained in the documentary program, and they have worked, as they will tell you, I'm sure, very, very hard for their degrees. For the parents and friends who are here, this is one of the most competitive and prestigious programs at the school. It's very oversubscribed each year. The applicants outnumber by many multiples the number of positions that we can offer, and then once the students are admitted, they have to endure the rigors of our faculty here at June Cross and Betsy West, who are really strong teachers but also have very high standards for the students and the school. And you'll see the results of that tomorrow in the lecture hall, where we will see 7 of the short films that the students have made entirely by themselves, reported, written, shot, and edited at the Doc Fest, and I'm looking forward to as much of that as I can see tomorrow. So I really don't have much more to say other than that this is really a time for celebration and to celebrate the achievements of these really hardworking students. The extra semester and the difficulties of collaborating and completing a film are, about as tough an ask as the school makes of its students, and so it's a function of the calendar that we have a chance to single them out and congratulate them for their work, but it's also fully deserved. So congratulations to you. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague Betsy West, who's supervising the program this year.
Thank you very much, Steve. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to the parents and family and friends and deans and professors and advisors and most of all the members of the class of 2014. As Dean Call said, you have worked hard, and I know personally that you've burned through your share of kilo, mega, giga, and terabytes. And I think you just give yourselves a big hand. Congratulations. So we're here in the newly renovated, very beautiful World Room, so named for the World newspaper run by the founder of the journalism school. And I think it's fantastic. It's pretty fabulous that we're here, not just because of that legacy, but because, let's face it, you guys are very, very worldly. If you look at this class of 10 students, you'll see when they graduate, they represent 8 different countries. So it's been a very global, very diverse, and really interesting class, and they've produced some tremendous work. For the past 100 years, the Columbia Journalism School existed without the benefit of any documentary studies. All that changed when the technology and the craft and the impact of documentaries developed to the point where it seemed that a documentary program at Columbia was imperative. Well, imperative at least to Professor June Cross. By 2008, Professor Cross had convinced the faculty, and we accepted our first class. She is on a well-deserved sabbatical, but she trained this class of 2014, so we're happy that she's here today, and we give her a shout out on the graduation of her 5th documentary class, really. I want to say just a little note about history, one more note about history. It's not just that documentaries weren't around during Pulitzer's time, because the word documentaire was actually first used back at the turn of the century. That's the 19th to the 20th century, when cinema was born. And documentaires were really the first movies. They drew crowds to theaters around the world. Apparently people were just mesmerized by real life scenes of trains coming and going and people leaving the office and babies eating dinner. The novelty quickly wore off, and documentaires were eclipsed by the cinema and fictional movies. But over the years, films called documentaries evolved as travelogues, as anthropology, as propaganda, educational films, and appeals for social change. And then, beginning in the 1950s, the rise of television news marked the beginning of the journalistic documentaries that are really a big part of our legacy. From Edward R. Murrow's Harvest of Shame, that I'm sure many of you have heard about, Eyes on the Prize, to today's award-winning documentary and investigative series, Frontline. We're going to be hearing more about the future of documentaries and storytelling from the Frontline Deputy Executive Editor a little bit later in our program. Very happy to have Raney Aronson here. But just take a minute to talk about another movie that made an impression on so many of us who aspire to be both journalists and visual storytellers. And that movie, at the same time, pioneered a new path for documentaries to be shown in theaters. Premiering at Sundance in 1994, Hoop Dreams was a 3-hour documentary that revealed in a deeply personal and cinematic way the realities of race and class and economic division in America. For 5 years, the filmmakers patiently followed and filmed two teenage boys, William Gates and Arthur Agee, with dreams of making it out of the south side of Chicago and into the NBA. They filmed at home, at school, on the bus, on the basketball court, and in one very memorable scene, they filmed them at a informal drug market as one of the fathers kind of slipped away from playing with his son to buy crack cocaine. Then, using really literary techniques, the filmmakers shaped a chronological narrative that was as powerful and as poignant as any fictional movie. Director Steve James accomplished this by finding and telling a fabulous story, of course, but his and his teams, and he did work with a team, their real success came from something more fundamental. It came from just being there. Some of the students and I went to see this beautifully restored version of Hoop Dreams at a film festival last month, which is what made me think about all of this. And sitting there, it just struck me that in one generation after this movie, so many young documentarians, as they're looking forward to a future full of technological transformation, still share this same impulse to be there. To bear witness, to reveal some aspects of life that we might otherwise not know about or might choose to ignore. So I think you'll really see what I mean as we turn now to look at the trailers of the films that were reported shot, written, and edited by our graduates. They were there. And this first group that we're going to see was produced by the students working in the summer semester. So let's roll the tape.
I was curious. Well, I believe in kind of exchanging roles.
Yeah. The experience for the men matters. It's not me trying to insult Islam in any kind of way. It's actually, I think, me trying to learn more about Islam. I grew up in a Muslim family, and my mom and dad always, like, when I was growing up, wanted me to be like this very, very religious person and wanted me to wear hijab. I just couldn't understand why.
তুমি আমেরিকান হইতে তুমি আমি চাই তো তুমি বাঙালি হইতে আমি তো চাই তুমি নামাজ পড়তে মাথা কাপড় দিতে আমি তো আমি মুসলিমের ভাবে চলবার লাগে।
Muslim women do not ever cut their hair really short. Bengalis in general really, really love long hair, and that's kind of also one of the reasons I had it really long. My mom and dad really loved having long hair. I I've been working up to this haircut for the last 2 years, and I've been doing the burqa project for the last 2 years. Funny how that also kind of works out.
There's this big snowstorm that came through. The next morning we found out that there were several of these elders who had died of exposure. And at that moment, excuse the language, I said, what the fuck is going on? My name is Moroni Benali, and I am running for president of the Navajo Nation.
Running for president of the Navajo Nation! Am I doing something for me? Remember my name. Is that the gay corner? To winning the Navajo Nation president. Yeah, this will be home for the summer. You go outside, you see all the balloons, the fanfare, the shiny objects. They're just trying to distract you from the fact that they don't know what they are doing. This is the truth. Every time the Navajo Nation goes in to negotiate with the federal government in consultation, we come out with less than we went in. I got two of you now. Our current leadership has not done enough.
They make it sound so easy. Everything is my fault. They got off on the wrong side of the bed, so Shelley's fault. They ate their own breakfast, Shelley's fault.
My name is Zachariah George. I help the president of the Navajo Nation, Ben Shelley. So this is Office of the Navajo Nation President and Vice President. Look at somebody stick their gum right here. That would be an awesome housewife because I know how to clean really good. And welcome to the Navajo Nation. Yay, everything is awesome.
I knew that I was gay when I was like 12 or 13.
I recall characterizing my condition as a cancer of the soul.
Yad Shike'ezene She'eya Moroni Benali Shek Nashashin Shlito Betani Bashishchin Aldo Ayase Twatlakante Nasha Shanala Hastin Ye Hastin Bagada Gulient Aldo She'eya Herbert Benali. He teaches at Dinek College. This election is not simply a choice between two candidates. Rather,
I was telling my sister, I said, he comes across like a really cute little bulldog.
I thought people got excited to see me. I look behind me, they'll point at the ponies.
It's supposed to be giving, giving, giving.
Do they want change or not?
we must move forward. We cannot let the status quo happen again. My name is Moroni Benali. I'm running for president of the Navajo Nation. Vote position number 3.
What's unique about the Gowanus, it's only one of 2 Superfund sites in New York City, but it's also unfortunately had a very long and tragic industrial history that's made it one of the most polluted waterways in the United States. For people that live in the area, they should really know what kind of risks they're facing.
Cadmium is a toxic metal. Chromium is the toxic metal. Mercury is toxic. So right there within the metal group, you've got a number of toxic metals in the canal.
That is the distinctive smell of coal tar, of gasoline that's actually leaching out from the old manufactured gas plant that's right opposite the canal there. The coal tar has sunk into the old wetland soils of the marshes and then bubbles up, and so it's a really difficult product to clean out of a Superfund site.
They're dangerous. Anthracene and benzanthracene. Naphthalene, phenaphthalene, these are also derivatives from coal, and your toxic levels are off scale. Each and every one of these is above the standards, way above the standard. And the level, the contamination level in the canal is 44.7 parts. It's shown to produce cancer at 6 parts. Hello?
We're also polluting the Gowanus today, just as people polluted the Gowanus back then. We're actually part of the problem.
There are actual sewage outfalls or discharge pipes in the Gowanus Canal that dump very large amounts of this mixed stormwater and sewage.
This is really a job for all of us. It's not just the city. This is the U.S., and part of the U.S. is the word us.
This is what my concern was that I saw 30 years ago in the canal. It was like, my God, look what's in here.
Wanting to discover the cure for cancer, I know, is a childhood dream.
There are a total of 5 children in our family. I'm the 4th of 5. I was the first one to graduate with an undergraduate degree. I'm the only one in my immediate family to have an advanced college degree.
8 years into education, 20 years of being in the field. I had anticipated that there always be a job, always.
My name is Vera Mae Volk. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of millions of unemployed Americans across this country who, like me, face the year-end shutdown of the federal emergency unemployment compensation benefits. We experience age discrimination, we experience educational discrimination, we experience skill discrimination.
I don't think my story is any different than anyone else's. The younger generation does root out the older generation.
Hello everyone, my name is Taman Malik and I am one of the class of, well, we've started calling ourselves CUJ 14.5 because we're not, we're not the class of 2014 and we're not 15, so CUJ 14.5 is what we called ourselves. When I applied to the documentary program at Columbia Journalism School, I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. The documentary project, that's what I applied for. It sounded intriguing and sort of harmless. It's also called the third semester documentary program. Again, 4 innocuous words that didn't quite convey the world of trouble that we would be getting ourselves into when we applied to this program. I knew coming in that this year was going to be tough, but I thought, hey, I'm tough. How bad can it be? And again, these past few weeks of sleepless nights and fifth floor mayhem, I now know the answer to that question. They say that people who go through a traumatic experience together often form close bonds. At this rate, I can safely say, CUJ 14.5, we are bonded for life. More than half of this year's documentary batch got to know each other extremely well during reporting class with Lisa Cohen and Rich Shapiro in that dingy little classroom in the basement. There were 6 diverse, worldly international students: Deepa, Jasper, Mushkan, Olivia, Sila, myself, and of course, my 2 favorite Americans, Sean and Leo. Reporting was where it all started. For all the stress and the frustration over sources that didn't call back, stories that didn't pan out. and beat memos that never ended. We learned that we are more determined and more resourceful than we had any idea. That was also back when everyone told us that August was the toughest month of the J School. Everyone lied. We got to know one of our part-timers of the program, Lisa, during Video 2 with Betsy West, Simon Serwicks, and Matt Bockelman. That was where we first learned that our first ever video assignment was to film runners. And by film, I mean literally chase runners while holding a camera, a tripod, a wheeler, and as they trained for the New York City Marathon. I told you J School was tough. We laughed, cried, and cursed over tripod malfunctions, overexposed shots, and of course, Simon's puns. But we learned that some stories are worth fighting for, and some narration is worth doing. The documentary seminar with June Cross and Pam Hogan is where Jesse, Renee, and Dorian joined and completed our doc family. The seminar was also where we found and fleshed out our stories, or rather our babies, which we'll finally be screening tomorrow. This is where we started getting a taste of what was to come. The nervousness before a really important shoot that mattered, finding and then losing one of our main characters, and the struggle that is documentary filmmaking. These past few months, in the third and final semester of our doc program, working with our advisors and with Betsy, to actually do the thing that we came here to do has been one of the scariest and most rewarding experiences. After 14 incredible and insane months, I'm exhausted. But I'm also grateful. I'm grateful to be here with all of you. You are some of the most wildly talented, passionate, determined, and curious people that I know. And I'm grateful to Columbia, and to our professors, to our advisors, and our mentors. Whether you know it or not, each one of you has left a lasting impression on every one of us. We thank you for accepting us with all of our spirit and our shortcomings. We thank you for the controlled chaos, for throwing us to the wolves, and then for being there for us when we needed you the most. We thank you for pushing us to be better and to do better. At the beginning of the year, I heard an alumni say, J School is the best year of your life that you will never want to repeat ever again. Now, with the past 14 months behind us, I would have to agree. Congratulations, class of 2014, CUJ 14.5. Honestly, I'm sleep deprived, so I forgot the fall trailers.
I love my father, but he's like any other father. If you mess up, he's gonna yell at you.
Take a deep breath and regulate here. You're in a fight, what are you gonna do? You're a pro right now. Spin off now, slide on.
But it just happens to be that this is my career.
From Brooklyn, New York, Junior Sugar Boy Tunis.
I had to be strict about how he trained.
Listen, it's 13 days before the fight. I don't want to hear this. Your opponent is good. No, you're not. No, you're not.
That's my way of protecting my son from what I knew could happen.
Okay, if you're injured, you can't fight.
The problem, though, is that Sugar Boy was so young, it was unclear if this was his choice.
This kid is the best undefeated prospect in his weight class in the world. I mean, if I'm Sharif, I'm like, man, I put my life into this. It better work out.
Am I really that confident? Like, it's just happening so easy.
I was brought from my country to see him become a champion one day.
I'll run with you if you have to.
I was born into it. We started it together, we're gonna finish it together.
Daniel. This is Miguel. This is my brother. Whatever he go through, I go through. We do everything together.
South Bronx, the South Bronx, South Bronx, the South Bronx.
Living in the South Bronx is a hard thing. Like, in a way, you got a lot of negativity drawn to you in a way. Peer pressure, you got so much peer pressure. But in a way, you can use that as a motivation to push you out too.
They do the twin thing, they like that for picture, but then they're very different.
I got a son now in the world. I don't want to sit there and be a failure. You know what I'm saying? I love my son, so it didn't affect me. It just motivated me more, and it makes me strive to accomplish all my goals in life.
South Bronx.
You know, this $55 million building is like, that's gonna help us succeed in life, I guess. And like, they know, let's not play no games. Like, all right, we coming in here, you know, we getting the same type of education, but it's like, I don't know, it's just a little different.
He is a gang member, right?
But they always say the government, it's built to put minorities down. So colors, as far as African Americans, Latinos, like they put us in a system as like we're not gonna make it. And I feel we not no different from anybody else.
This is like an allergy pill, because now I've become allergic to everything.
Me and my girlfriend, when I was diagnosed with cancer, had just moved to Chicago and had our own apartment together for the first time.
The cost of healthcare has gone up far faster than wages have gone up.
It's confusing on what you still have to pay out of pocket.
I mean, ultimately, they can make me pay whatever they want. Now it's up to them.
I hope and pray this pill's working. I'll be more at ease and know it's working than having her to go through hard chemo, because it's not easy.
But they raised like $40,000 in 3 weeks.
So I don't have to blow my dowry on medical bills.
Beat that shit.
Alright, don't worry. I'm trying.
So now it just gives me so much pleasure to introduce our graduation speaker. I really wish that I could say that when I met Raney Aronson about 20 years ago at ABC News that I predicted that she would take over the mantle of the great Frontline or that she would become a leading voice in the future of journalism. Back then, she was fresh out of J School, this J School, and she was kind of shy and reserved. But at the documentary program where we worked, she soon proved herself to be whip smart and dogged and determined, and really one of the early adopters of using the internet as a reporting tool. Raney went on from ABC to become a producer at Frontline, where she took on complex and investigative stories. She also did a memorable series on the news business in crisis, and I think that's an assignment that may have helped her become such an effective news executive. As deputy executive editor of Frontline, Raney has expanded the series' investigative work, and she's really reimagined the documentary form across multiple platforms, something that UDoc students will need to be thinking about. Under her leadership, Frontline has won every major award in journalism. It's dramatically expanded its digital footprint. She has developed and managed nearly 30 partnerships, including with ProPublica, the New York Times, and Univision. Oh yes, and beyond all of that, this year she found time away from the office to be a fellow at MIT's prestigious Open Documentary Lab. Shy and reserved, I don't think so. Here now is Raney Aronson.
So what Betsy didn't tell you is she hired me, and she was terrifying. So maybe why I was so shy and reserved is because you terrified me. So, I mean, quite seriously, she's amazing. And so I looked up to her from the moment I met her. I'm going to tell you a great story in a little bit about her. First of all, congratulations, you guys are amazing. Are you awake? Some of you look tired. I overheard some stories in the bathroom, you're nodding. I think you asked me, is it always so tortured and torturous, this process of making a documentary film? And the answer is yes, but it's amazing to do this kind of work, and I'm proud of you all. The trailers were incredibly done and well shot and well told and coherent. I think one of the most important things to me is visual and intellectual coherence, just in general, and I'm going to talk about that, but I know what your films are about, and I want to watch every single one of them. I want to send you guys a message that I think is really important from where I sit. And I sit in a special place because there aren't a lot of documentary series that are based in journalism anymore, is that I'm looking and seeking documentary filmmakers who care about journalism. That have journalism in their DNA and care. Because a lot of independent filmmakers, either it's not even that they don't care, it's just that they don't know how to do it, so they come to us with films that are very provocative, very persuasive. And when we start to ask the tough questions that any journalism institution would ask, they haven't done the hard work to actually deliver us something that we can work with. So I think June's program, Betsy, and now I know you did an incredible job this year. This is a really special program. You should know how special you are in the marketplace. I'm going to talk about that. I know there are a lot of women students here today, men as well, but I am going to talk a bit about gender and what I see out there. You should know that you are very special and that we need you and that you're rare. Okay, so that's my message today. You guys are rare. And I want to tell you a little story about why I wanted to tell it this way, is that I was thinking about 20 years ago being a student here, and it has been 20 years ago, which is kind of amazing. And I always heard older people say that when I was your age, and I'm like, ugh, do they have to say that? But I think it's important because 20 years ago, this school was nothing like you are seeing today. In fact, I really felt, and I was a Prince student, very judgmental of the television program. In fact, I think it's my karma, right? And Nina, you're here, yes, right? You're nodding. You know this about me. I was completely a print person, and Seymour Topping was my advisor. And I had just spent 3 years living in Taiwan, and I had just reported on, as a very young person, on the democratic revolution in Taiwan, and print to me was like God. I mean, like if I had a religion, it would be print. And I had convinced my parents that print was a pretty good career at that time, right? And I should have maybe been a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, but they were okay with the idea that I could work for a newspaper. It was a solid career, especially my father, who was pretty dubious at the beginning. And I remember coming to Columbia, and my conversation began with Seymour Topping about what I should do with my life. And he was very, very strident. He told me, and to this day, I love this man, and I see him once a year at the Livingstons, and I always eat lunch with him once a year. It's like my favorite thing to do. That I had to go to a mid-sized newspaper, and I had to work my way up from like a cop reporter all the way through, and in about 10 years, maybe I would be able to work for a big newspaper. And I had just come from Taiwan, right? I had just covered the democratic revolution of Taiwan, I thought, right? And I was working for a small paper there, but it was a really dramatic story. It had changed me. So I was hungry for something different. I didn't even know how hungry I was, but At the time, I was in the full-time program, and I was just talking to Betsy about this at lunch. I had to work, and this is actually a theme through my whole life. I have always had to work, so I've noticed in writing my essay, my speech to you guys, that my life's message, my life's method has actually been working really hard. And that's meant doing a couple of things at once at all times. I don't know why that's been my method, but it just has been. And so when I was a student here, I happened to speak Chinese and Hindi, and I was really broke. And I had to work, so I had to ask the dean for permission. And it was not an easy conversation. And finally, the answer was yes. And I started to be a translator on a documentary series in an overnight fashion. So I would show up. You guys have all been in edit rooms, right? The producers left, and I would show up with the assistant editor, and I would sit down with this guy, and I would do translations. And in the morning, I would still be there. And the producers would be like, "What are you doing here? Why are you still here?" And what had happened to me through the weeks of translating, I was a terrible translator, was I fell in love with this form, the visual form. I just simply actually couldn't look away from it. And I asked this editor, this really dear guy who remains to be a very close friend, could you just teach me everything that you know? Why did they shoot it that way? Why did they do it that way? What were they thinking when they did this? And this was actually a really well shot film. So I learned so much from this editor. And then began the difficult conversation with Professor Topping, in which I had to essentially break his heart. And I told him, so here's the deal. I'm not going to be a newspaper reporter. And it was one of the most difficult conversations, but I realized in that moment, and this is part of my life's method, I wasn't asking for permission. I was asking for his understanding, for him to acknowledge that there was a world of a visual world out there that was credible and important and profound. And at the time, it was so interesting because he really didn't quite believe me, you know, and a lot of people didn't believe me at that time, that this was a path that would be righteous. And so you guys are way ahead of me, right? You've already made this decision, you're making films, there's a program that supports you. So when I was here, there was none of that, but I had made a decision that I had to do it. So I'm gonna fast forward to a moment with Betsy. Because really, when I look back, that was the start of my documentary career. It was this really special program called Turning Point. And Betsy was the executive producer, right? Exactly. So I was 26. I was right out of school. I had had one other job. And frankly, I was quiet and shy. But I was pretty sure that I was higher level than the PA position that they had advertised. So I came in and I sat with Betsy West, and again, she was terrifying. You can imagine you're 26. You guys have experienced her, right? So she's wonderful, but she is intimidating. And I'm finally, by the way, can have a normal conversation with Betsy as an adult. It took me a while. And essentially, I argued to her that number one, the salary was too low. And this is, again, a life's method. And number two, the title was just below me. And I argued, and this sounds like really petty, and I told John Meyerson the story on the phone the other day, because we were just reminiscing, he's in the crowd today, that I just wanted the title senior. I said, I want to be a senior PA, and I want to make $30,000 more. And she was not happy. Because, you know, she's trying to staff up her show. What's this young person? She's annoying. Why is she asking for more money? Who is she anyway? She's just a graduate student, whatever. So I just was quiet. And this is a piece of advice, especially if you're going into hierarchies and news organizations. When you ask for something, just be quiet after you ask for what you really, really want, because it's really powerful. People in positions of power don't really know what to do when you just ask for what you want and then you sit still. So I sat still and I waited. And she said, why? Just like that, why? So I told her why. I was really special. I had been overseas for a long time. I knew a lot more than she thought I did, and I was a strong candidate. And she still didn't give it to me. She said, I'll get back to you. So I said, fine. I'll wait for you to call, but I have another job anyway, so I hope it works out. So she called me the next day, and she actually picked up the phone and called me herself, which was actually something that was really unnecessary, right, for the executive producer to call a potential PA, right? She didn't really need to do that, but she did. And she gave me the money I wanted and the title I wanted. And it was a lesson in just asking for what you want. So I'm going to fast forward to my life as a boss. And I have a lot of people who work for me and a lot of amazing women who work for me. And why I'm sharing that particular story is that 3 days ago, a woman walked into my office, and this has happened to me many times, and I'm seeing gender through a totally different perspective as a boss. And she sat in the office, and she's a complete rock star on our staff. I mean, there's really no one better than her at what she does, and she's completely valuable. She's in her late 20s, and she's amazing. And I think I tell her that like every week. I mean, I'm not, I give praise when I think it's due. And she sat in my office, and I said, what's the matter? She said, I just have to ask you for something. And I said, what? What's the matter, Patrice? Are you okay? And she started to ask for what she felt was a deserved raise and promotion. And the way that she did it was apologetic. And I just had this moment as both, a boss and a mentor to women. And I said, you have to stop and do it all over again. You need to stop that apologizing and asking for more money. You need to actually look at me in the face and tell me why you deserve it, because you deserve it, right? So I gave her a soft landing. I was kind. But I had this epiphanal moment of saying, I have had so many women in my office do it that way that I had to start to help them. Ask for what you deserve. You can ask. People can say no. I'm not going to always say yes, right, as a boss? But you can actually ask. And I mean this across the board. You can ask to go to dangerous places if that's what you want to do, right? You don't have to be shy. You can ask for more money, and I encourage you to, because you should never start a conversation like, I know you guys are super broke because you're public media, but could you please? Right, so I actually asked Patrice her permission to share this story today because I found it so profound, because I have a totally different experience as a boss with men who come into my office. They come in confident, they ask for what they want, and usually they get it. And so I realized this gender thing, right? It's real, and it's happening even as a female boss, right? This is real. I'm here to say this is real. I'm not saying we're all at fault for this. I'm just saying that we can learn to ask better, that there's a whole way of going about this. It doesn't mean you always win, but it means at least you have the chance to. And it's been such a profound experience with women on my staff and how many women have done this that I just thought, I want to share that with you today. And I know the student body here is more female than ever. And a couple of students from this class a couple of years back, right, Aviva and Hilka, you guys are both here. Again, to the point of you guys are special, we did a big film with them. And I remember many conversations with them early on in the process where we talked about what it's like, the difficult story they told, being a woman in the field. So it's not all about being a woman, but there are particular things. And I think it's just been it's good for me to share with you that you can ask for what you want and be quiet after you ask. And wait and see what happens. Hopefully it'll be good. Call me if it's not. Ask me for the next strategy. So I wanted to talk a little bit, Betsy promised the future. So I think part of my life's method has always been a bit of restlessness. So I am totally addicted to the long-form documentary form. And in fact, it's the only thing I've done for 20 years since I left ABC. And I firmly believe in narrative journalism. I firmly believe in the idea that long-form documentary is not going anywhere. In fact, the indication is that it's growing, right? So people watch for longer. The devices are easier to watch on. What we're doing is really powerful as filmmakers. But I had an experience that has everything to do with motherhood. Not to be all gender tonight, but it does come down to the fact that I have a daughter who was very speech delayed, and very early in her life, a speech therapist said to me, she was only 1, so this is 4 years ago, the tablets were just coming out, first generation tablets, and the speech therapist said, hey, do you want to try a tablet with your daughter to see if we can unlock her? And I said, well, I don't know, that sounds kind of weird, but okay, we could try it. I mean, literally, the iPad had just come out. And again, remember, I really believe in long-form documentary, right? This is actually my religion. So what I did was I said yes, and I watched my 1-year-old daughter take the tablet and use it in a way that we all know what we do now with a tablet, but at the time was a profound shift for me. The way that she used it, the way that she was so intuitive, and she could just go into a scene, and her expectation at one with media was so profoundly different than mine that it scared the living daylights out of me. And I remember going into the newsroom later that day and talking to my head of digital, who is one of the greatest guys ever, who's now no longer with Frontline, but really a pivotal part of my education on this. And I said to him, like, I'm scared. I'm scared for the linear form. I just watched my daughter completely in an hour figure out how to immerse herself in a world that I've never experienced. So what does this mean to what we're doing? And he smiled. He was so happy that I was finally waking up. And this has happened a few times along the way, where younger people who already know this are saying, oh, thank God you're getting it, you know? It's still like we don't have the answer, but thank God you're paying attention. The other thing I saw with my daughter, which was so profound, is her absolute frustration with television. She hated it. She wanted to touch it. She couldn't understand it. She was stomping her feet just like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old would, right? Just wanted to throw it over. And it was actually aggressive behavior, right? 2-year-olds can be, you know. So I watched her just frustrated with what we do, and it scared me further. So one of the promises I made to myself, and again, this is about who I am, is I have to dive in to the idea that, yes, I believe in documentary filmmaking, and we will keep doing films, right, forever. Frontline will always be a series that does films, but I need to start to understand this different form. I need to understand what could be there. And so we started to experiment, and it has been amazing. And what's happened to me as somebody who's simply been didactically in love with documentary is my mind has completely expanded to the point where I think that there's a new world of visual storytelling. So much so that I think that we need to start doing active experiments inside Frontline, which we're starting to do actually with Columbia right now, to look at what immersive worlds we're going to start entering into in a journalistic fashion, right? This is completely in vogue in some cases, but in journalism institutions, especially one like Frontline, this is kind of like anathema to what we do. This is not what we do. But I do think it's a healthy thing to challenge ourselves yet again to say the form is changing. We don't know what's going to happen to it, but we have to get in the game. And one of my frustrations, and it's a deep frustration, is my lack of knowledge in this area. And that's why I've been so inspired by what Columbia is doing to say the conversation between technologists, engineers, and journalists has to happen, right? Journalists have to become sophisticated enough to have a conversation with an engineer, a person, a technologist, someone who can build this, right? In order to build something that has storytelling coherency. Back to the idea of like, I believe in narrative, I believe in storytelling, like nothing else. But if you can't talk to these people about what it is, and you don't know how to do a little of it yourself, in fact, we're never going to really push this form forward in a way that I think the potential where we can reach. So one of the things I did this year, as Betsy mentioned, is I decided that I needed to take a day a week out of the office, and I needed to do this for a multitude of reasons. I needed to decide like what this was for me, so I started going to MIT once a week. And it was one of the scariest things I've done. Like going back to school after 20 years is hard. And I found myself in meetings, actually they're not meetings, they're classes, right? So you just heard me call them a meeting. They're classes. And I'm supposed to be a boss in most settings now. And it was really shocking for me to not have to like perform or do anything but learn. And it's been so amazing for me to be surrounded by people who make things, people I can ask questions of, like, what do you mean when you say X, you know? And I've been so incredibly inspired by these people who know how to make interactive docs, who know how to make incredible immersion technology that will actually help us go to the next level. And one of the things I found, which has been really enlightening, is that we are just at the beginning. You know, Betsy was talking about how fascinated people were with, you know, looking at a train, like the point of view on the train, right? It was really cool at the time. 3D right now, virtual reality, all this work we're doing, we're in the beginning stages. And my message to filmmakers is, please get in the game with me, because we need visual storytellers. We need storytellers. And one of the things I've noticed at MIT, and I say this very openly, is where are all the storytellers? Like, you guys can build really cool things, but what are they for? And what is the meaning? And where is the journalism? Like, where is the actual credible journalism? Because my thought is, like, if we can combine the two, and this is the idea of the Brown Institute and Tau, you guys know this, but it's like in practice harder than preaching, right? To actually start to break those barriers and embrace the technology is crucial. And I have to believe that visual storytellers are the people. I'm looking at you guys, right? Because your brains are flexible still. Get in this game, because again, you're going to be so valuable to someone like me and multiple people in our field. You're going to be faced with the reality that things will change, and we have to understand it, and we have to set the tone. And one of the things I've noticed with technology in general is that I don't think we're claiming it. I think we're scared in some cases, right? This is what I'm observing. And I think it's unnecessary. I think we're incredibly smart. We're incredibly industrious. We work so hard. So if it means spending another hour to learn how to code a day for a few months, just do it. I'm preaching to myself right now. I mean, I think the good news is that you're talking to someone who has gone through a big transformation just recently enough to say, I have to make time for this. I have to learn about this like I learned about cameras, right? Like I learned about how to become a journalist. Like I learned how to build a sequence in an edit room. This is so crucial, because then you'll understand what you can make in the future. And I don't even mean the future, like what you can make today, because this is what we're doing now. So one of my messages, and I keep saying this to filmmakers in particular, and I know making a film is so hard. Like I said, I overheard one of you guys in the bathroom just talking about how you barely made your deadline, and it's like a nightmare. I get it. I know it's really hard, but I'm actually saying, like, I'm really busy too, right? I'm a working parent. I have a big job, and I'm saying this is important enough for me to say that alongside making films, fixing films, commissioning films, we have to be in the storytelling game of where technology is going. And I had such a great conversation with Mark Hansen earlier, and he actually helped me change the very speech I'm giving today, because he said something really profound to me that I never thought of before, which was, technologists, engineers, the people, we know how to build all these things, but we're terrified of people with storytelling skills. We're the ones who are nervous. Like, we don't know what we're doing in that area. We don't have any idea what you're talking about with act structure and narrative structure. And what do you mean when something doesn't have meaning and doesn't have emotion? Like, we were never taught any of these skills. So just the fact that he was saying, hey, we're scared too. I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. So now I can understand why I'm having this hard time having this really profound creative block sometimes, from both sides. So my big message is, you have to work hard, right? So maybe you have to work like overtime to learn some of this stuff. And that's basically been my method. But I think you guys are so well positioned, and you're in such a time right now for both journalism and filmmaking. There's more places than ever. And my last message is just to make sure, if you can and if you love it, to keep journalism central to what you do. And I say that because, as you guys know, spending time in an edit room, what we do is so easily manipulated. What we do is so persuasive. And it's a gift to be able to tell a story in as truthful a way as you can, and as responsible a way. And I can tell you just from my own experience and everybody I work with, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get us closer to the truth, right? So if you can keep journalism, which is about truth-telling really, as much as we can do, central to your mission, as you do all these different forms, we're going to be fine. We're going to be better than fine. In fact, we could like rock it out there in every different form. So congratulations. You guys are great. I'll be looking for your work, and thank you for inviting me. You guys are wonderful.
That was fabulous, except now I think I have to go learn how to code. Oh my God, please. Premiere is bad enough. All right, now is the moment you've all been waiting for, the time to award your degrees. I'm going to call you up one by one, so please come and get your degree, and then you will walk across and get your photo taken and just stand over here. I mean, at our regular May graduation, there's a vain attempt to kind of hold your applause till everybody gets their things, but there are only 10 of you, so you can let loose, you can applaud, whatever you want to do. Before I call up the 10 graduates, I just want to acknowledge that there are 2 members of this team, full members of this team, who are not graduating today because they're part of the part-time program. That is Lisa Herndon and Renee Wunderlich. Now, Renee, there's Lisa, take a stand and your applause. Yeah. Renee is not here because, luckily for her, she's on assignment. I think one of her first assignments out in the field for CNN. So, which is fantastic. So we'll applaud for Renee too. All right. So, soon to be graduates, here we go. Coming from Worcester, the United Kingdom, Olivia Crellin. And from Leader, Saskatchewan, Dorian Geiger. I'm glad you made it off of the FDR. Congratulations, yeah. Helsinki, Finland, Sila Husko. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Karachi, Pakistan, Saman Malik. Yeah, good. Boston, Massachusetts, by way of Moscow and Kabul, Musgan Mia Razul. Yeah. Yes. Haddam. Yes? The Netherlands. Jasper, Reichen, Pierce. Yeah. Congratulations. Oh, you're here? Good. Los Angeles, California. Jessica Phillips. I went out of order because I didn't know if you were. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sean Ryan. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. Miami, Florida. Leah Zora Scruggs. Where are you? There you are. Yeah. Yeah. And finally, from Hyderabad, India, Deepa Shri Varadarajan. Yay! Did I do it? All right, so there they are, the class of 2014. Yay! Yay. So we have little champagne and some food in the back. I want to remind you all, if you haven't already been reminded 1,000 times, that we're having our Doc Fest tomorrow, starting at 11 o'clock. So please come and see the films on our beautiful screen in the lecture hall. And thank you all so very much.